Evening as we come on the air in the West tonight, and we begin with that breaking headline, those top secret JFK files. The president tweeting they were coming today, the final batch of classified documents from the assassination of President Kennedy. A short time ago, the White House explaining the major delay, the new concern tonight. Teams of historians and reporters waiting all day long to learn more about that fateful day, including what more did the CIA possibly know about Lee Harvey Oswald before the assassination, his trip to Mexico, his visits to the embassies of Russia and Cuba. Tonight, concerns that releasing some of that material could pose a national security threat. ABC's chief national correspondent Tom Llamas leads us off from Washington.
Tonight, more confusion and drama surrounding the assassination of JFK. President Trump announcing some of the secret documents scheduled to be released today will not be, because they pose a danger to national security. 2,800 other documents are being released to shed more light into the killing.
As Mrs. Kennedy.
On November 22, 1963, President Kennedy and the First Lady arriving in Dallas on that day that would change America. That tragic trip through Dealey Plaza. The first couple riding through that windy road in Dallas in a Lincoln Continental with the top down. The president an open target for assassin Lee Harvey Oswald.
President Kennedy has been shot in Dallas, Texas.
From the get-go, the news was so hard to believe. A single man with a rifle killing the protected leader of the free world. Then, just 2 days later on live television.
There is Lee Oswald. He's been shot.
The man who pulled the trigger, shot and killed him in the custody of police officers. All of this sparking intrigue and doubt.
Assassins need payrolls, schedules, times, orders. This was a military-style ambush from start to finish. This was a coup d'etat with Lyndon Johnson waiting in the wings.
The film JFK and its fictional plot surrounding a conspiracy to kill Kennedy, fueling even more speculation, and in part leading Congress to pass a law to release all federal assassination records by today. Experts say some of those secret documents concern Oswald and his trip to Mexico City 7 weeks before the killing, his visits to the Russian embassy and Cuban consulate there, and possibly what the CIA and FBI knew about his intentions to want to kill the president. And everyone will be mining the documents for any clues to the big question: did Oswald act alone?
I would like to think that these documents would be a final answer where Americans could look at this case and say, okay, this is what happened. But realistically, that's never going to happen.
And Tom Llamas, one of those reporters waiting all day. He's at the National Archives tonight. And Tom, the president had tweeted promising this major release of documents. And then late today, those concerns that some of the material could jeopardize national security.
That's right, David, and we know the vast majority of the documents that were blocked tonight come from the FBI and the CIA. Senior administration officials tell us that the reason why they blocked some of these documents is because they could potentially harm intelligence assets abroad. Now, the amazing part about what happened today was that Congress enacted this act to be more transparent. This move tonight likely will fuel more conspiracy theories, David.
Certainly will. Tom Llamas leading us off tonight. Tom, thank you.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century, tempered by war, disciplined by a hard and bitter peace, proud of our ancient heritage, and unwilling to witness or permit the slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed and to which we are committed today at home and around the world. Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe to assure the survival and the success of liberty.
That this was a fence-mending sort of trip from the White House press corps perspective.
Well, it was. For instance, it was so trivial. We were trying to find out, one of the big investigative projects of the trip was to find out where Ralph Yarborough was going to sit in one of the limousines in a motorcade because the Connollys apparently didn't want him with them, as the rumor went. So they had to find a place for Ralph to be up front and be welcomed into the party.
Yeah, that's interesting because it was the White House press perspective, looking at the national political scene and all. Larry Temple, general counsel for LBJ after he ascended to the presidency, and also was close trusted aide to Governor Connolly. You were working here, primarily heading up the Texas planning for the event in that regard. Does this fence mending fit the total picture?
Well, you know, the conspiracy theories about the assassination seem to be endless, and every time I turn around, there seem to be more and more myths about the trip. The trip clearly was political, there's no question about that. But one of the myths, and I have a respectful disagreement with Sid, is that the reason for the trip was that President Kennedy wanted to come down here and mend the fences in the Democratic Party and see if he could reconcile the John Connally, Lyndon Johnson wing with the Ralph Yarborough wing. And that was a myth that's been perpetuated. The plain, simple fact is it was to be a political trip, one for fundraising, and two to get around the state so the president could lay the base for his '64 election campaign. President Kennedy had been wanting to have a fundraiser or multiple fundraisers in Texas apparently since 1962, and had talked to John Connally about that. And the governor had kind of pushed him back a little bit, saying it's a little too early. Your popularity is not at a stage right now that serves your best interest. Why don't we wait until early '64 to have the fundraiser? And President Kennedy kept pushing back on Governor Connally's pushback. And in June of 1963, Governor Connally was in El Paso and met with President Kennedy and Vice President Johnson. And while I was on that trip, I wasn't in the room when the conversation took place, but he reported that President Kennedy said, "John, we've got to have the trip and the fundraiser. You've got to commit to do it." And he did. Governor Connally said, "Okay, if that's what you want to do, and now's the time, we will do it." And President Kennedy initially wanted to have 5 fundraisers, one in Houston, one in San Antonio, one in Dallas, one in Fort Worth, and one in Austin. And John Connally said, "No, don't look like you're trying to come down here to rape the state." And that was the term he used. You need to come down and have the people think you really care about the state and you want the votes. So that was when the decision was made to have the single fundraising dinner here in Austin on the night of November 22, and then have the other parts of the trip that Sid has talked about, and Julian and Ben can tell about more detail of San Antonio, Houston, Fort Worth, Dallas before coming here. But there's nothing wrong with having a political fundraising trip. That's the nature of politics. But it wasn't a trip to heal the wounds. As John Connally said, if he wanted to heal the wounds between LBJ and Ralph Yarborough, they were a few blocks from the White House. All he had to do was go over there. And the governor also said if he thought he could heal the disagreement between Senator Yarborough and me, that would be a bit fanciful, and even the president didn't think he could do that. It was a political trip, one for fundraising, two to get around the state and try to generate popularity as a predicate to the election.
Well, I think that it'd be wonderful if we could put an end to these conspiracy theories that people want to believe in without any facts to support it. And 50 years is enough to play the game here, and the evidence hasn't changed. The evidence is the same. I think that I don't want to get in a quarrel with people who disagree with me, but I think the Warren Commission report still holds after 50 years. And
all three of you others agree with that?
Absolutely.
Lee Harvey Oswald.
Neil, I not only agree with that, but I accompanied Ted Kennedy here to this library to make his first trip. Ted Kennedy never went back to Dallas, never went to Dallas after that, but he came here to visit Ms. Johnson in this library, and he said walking through the exhibits and going up to Ms. Johnson's office, he said that he agreed agreed with the Warren Commission report, and he had no reason to doubt the validity of the Warren Commission report, and Senator Kennedy said that in this library.